The facility, should it be built, will be there for thousands of years. It will affect, or it would affect, many generations into the future. It's absolutely imperative that we get it right.
If a repository is not right for this area, it will not come to this area.
Local authorities here will not want to make any decision until they're sure of what public opinion is and that the public are well informed and understand the issues concerned.
Information is available for everyone, and we want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to read about it, to talk to partnership members, so that they know what it means for the future.
In 2008, the UK government launched the search for a location for an engineered underground repository that will be the final home for the country's higher activity radioactive wastes. Allerdale Borough Council, Copeland Borough Council and Cumbria County Council decided to discuss the possibility of this facility being located in West Cumbria, because a large amount of the waste is already stored at Sellafield.
It's important whether the waste stays or whether the waste goes. The impact on our communities is, whether it be socially, environmentally or economically, is massive. So we need to make sure that this community's voice is heard.
An independent committee of experts, the Committee on Radioactive Waste Management, or CORM, recommended that in the light of current knowledge, underground geological disposal would be the best long-term option to deal with the higher activity radioactive wastes that are currently stored at sites around the country. CORM made their recommendation after looking at a range of evidence, both in the UK and overseas, about the different ways to deal with this kind of waste. There's already an underground geological disposal facility in the United States, and there are plans to build repositories in Finland and Sweden. In June 2009, Forsmark in Sweden was selected as the site for a repository. The final site selection process involved 2 communities that had volunteered to host a repository. The UK government has also decided it will only put a repository in an area that volunteers to have it.
The government's absolutely committed to an approach that's based around voluntarism and partnership with local communities. This is a long-term development, a long-term process to implement geological disposal in the UK, and it will only succeed if it has support of the local community.
The 3 councils in Cumbria have set up the West Cumbria Managing Radioactive Waste Safely Partnership to ensure that a wide range of community interests are involved in these discussions. The partnership includes organisations such as the Cumbria Association of Local Councils, the Lake District National Park Authority, trades unions and the National Farmers Union. All these organisations have an important role to play in ensuring that the views of different parts of the community are taken into account.
The partnership is going to put forward thoughts and guidance to the community, and it's therefore important that those people who are going to be affected, i.e. as far as the National Farmers Union is concerned, it's the landowners and the farmers, they have some input at this stage so that the right questions are asked.
The partnership meets every 6 weeks to consider the issues involved in hosting a geological disposal facility, and these meetings are open to the public. The partnership aims to make a recommendation to the 3 councils on whether West Cumbria should take part in the government search for a site for a repository. The meetings are managed by independent facilitators, 3KQ, to ensure that no one view dominates in the discussions and that the meetings are fairly managed. Members of the partnership are also keen to ensure that as many people as possible get involved and have the chance to ask questions and say what they think.
But this is a unique opportunity because of the nature of the engagement with government, the fact that we do locally have a veto, which is very unusual in the United Kingdom, as to whether or not we move forward with this policy. And a crucial part of that is that in order to make any further moves down this road, we have to be sure that the general public are supportive of moving forward at all. It's a great opportunity to understand a project of great importance to the community and the country so that people can express their views.
If the facility is built in West Cumbria, then there will be consequences both positive and negative for the people of West Cumbria. And the partnership feels that it's very important that the people understand both sides of the argument, both sides of the discussion, before they make their voices known and their opinions heard to the partnership.
There's a range of different ways that people can find out more and get involved. These include articles in the local media and other publications, information on the partnership's website, newsletters sent to households in West Cumbria. And the partnership is also organising exhibitions and community drop-in events across the area. People who took part in events earlier this year believe it's important for everyone to get involved.
I think it's vitally important that the local communities are involved at all stages. They're going to have to deal with the impact of the initial development and then cope with the ongoing issues around the presence of the repository.
I think it's very important for the members of the public to get involved with this issue, just because it's going to be affecting their lives directly, as the repositories may be going to be placed around them.
It's important that all the residents of the area know exactly what is happening. And that's why we're having a big publicity campaign to make sure, as you see, the stand behind us today, to make sure every resident in the area knows what Deep Geological Repository means, so that they can inform members of the partnership of their views and opinions. Without that, the partnership really is a non-starter, because this is very much about the residents being part of the decision making.
So what might a geological disposal facility look like? The government says geological disposal involves putting radioactive waste in a disposal facility deep inside a suitable rock formation to ensure that no harmful quantities of radioactivity ever reach the surface. The organisation with responsibility for implementing geological disposal is the Nuclear Decommissioning Authority, the NDA.
The priority is very much one of safety. To ensure that safety, what we're doing is we're using a multi-barrier approach. So you take the waste and condition it, make it passively safe, then put it into a container. The container is then put into an engineered vault deep underground. That deep underground means somewhere between probably 200 to 1,000 metres, which means there's a vast amount of rock between it and the surface.
The government says a repository would not be able to go ahead unless independent regulators, such as the Environment Agency, were content that it was safe, secure and environmentally acceptable. It would include buildings above the ground, for example workshops and offices, tunnels leading to the underground vaults, and the repository itself would probably extend over an underground area of several square kilometres, depending on the geology and what goes into it.
We have to look at the structure of this facility, the way it's going to be built, how it's going to be built, not yet where it's going to be built. We have to look at potentially what may go down into this facility, the materials that will be put there, the lifetime of those materials, whether they should be recoverable or whether the process should be fully reversible, so that what goes in can be brought out equally easily. There are so many questions that we need answers to yet, that we in the partnership don't know yet.
A geological disposal facility would take the higher activity radioactive wastes that are currently stored at a number of locations around the country, including Sellafield. The repository could also take waste from any new nuclear power stations that are built in the future. Before any community can decide whether it wants to take part in the process of finding a site, the government requires a basic geological study to be carried out to check that the whole area is not unsuitable for a repository. The British Geological Survey, the BGS, the UK geological experts, was asked by the government to look at the information that was already available about the geology of the whole of Allerdale and Copeland and up to 5 kilometres offshore. They screened out areas based on criteria set out by an independent scientific panel commissioned by the government. For example, areas with coal and iron ore deposits that the nation may want to access at a later date. The government say this study is not intended to indicate where a repository might go. More detailed geological tests may well find that other areas are also geologically unsuitable for an underground repository. It's also important to be aware that the surface facilities could be a number of kilometres from the repository, so they could be in an area which is unsuitable for the underground facility.
If local decision-making bodies decided to participate in the site selection process for a geological disposal facility, and recognising they would still have a right of withdrawal for some time to come, there would need to be a lot more work done to examine both the geological factors and the social and environmental factors that affect the choice of an eventual location for a facility.
We're at a very early stage in this process, following the expressions of interest made by the 3 councils and the study by the British Geological Survey. If there is a decision to take part in the search for a site, the process to identify a suitable location would be a long one. The next stage would involve a series of studies to look at a wide range of social, economic and environmental criteria. Meanwhile, a community siting partnership would scrutinise the issues in even greater detail and ensure that local people are involved. They would also work with the government to agree what community benefits, for example extra investment, would be provided if the area decided to have a repository here. Finally, there would be detailed geological investigations on the remaining sites. Only after that would it be necessary to make a final decision about whether to have a repository in West Cumbria. That would probably be more than a decade from now, before work could start on the underground facility. Before there's a decision on whether or not to take part in these later stages of this process, the partnership and the public will need to consider a number of important questions, including what the negative effects of a repository might be on the area, what the positive effects could be, how a suitable site would be identified if there's a decision to take part in further stages of this process, and how local people would be involved in making the decisions.
I do think we should consider having a repository in West Cumbria for radioactive waste. It'll bring jobs to the area, but you do have to think about the wider community because it won't just affect individuals, it'll affect a wide area.
The key issue is safety. Most certainly it's safety. And can you ever be sure that it will be safe?
The positive ones is it's going to create jobs, and we've already got the skill base here in the nuclear industry, so that would be useful to retain that in the county. And the negatives, my concern would be safety and environmental impact.
Before the 3 local authorities make a decision on whether to take part in the government search for somewhere to locate a repository, the partnership will be listening carefully to the views of the public and gathering more evidence.
We've entered into a partnership with government, we've volunteered to look at the options. Nobody has signed on any dotted line. And before anything like that, it's such a long way down the line. We need to make sure we've gathered all the evidence that we need. We need to continue consulting with the community.
Local authorities will make their decision in 2011 based on one prime important factor in my view, and that is evidence that the public approve moving forward to the next step. I don't believe that any decision taken by local authorities without clear evidence of public support would be valid.